So I think maybe we can just casually start in, and everybody that pours in still, I will just let them in along the way. So I know everyone has come from Malta, obviously, not from me. So I just like to give you some short context about this new interview series we are doing here at Radiant, the Masters of Search Talks. This should not just be another podcast, but an exclusive series of talks, invite only, where we host interesting guests from the search marketing space. Topic will range from SEO to paid search and AI search, obviously. We will start with our interview now, and after that, go into a Q&A, so everyone has the chance to get their questions answered. Please mute yourself for now if you haven't done already. And if you have a question along the way, just click on the 9 dots in the right bottom corner of your screen, then on Q&A, and enter your question, so nothing gets lost. You can also unmute yourself in the Q&A then at the end and explain your question if you like. And yeah, maybe we will have some sort of discussion and get this thing going. So without further ado, I'm super happy to introduce my first guest, Malte Landwehr, who just made news this week with leaving his, as he said himself, comfy corporate job to join a startup here in Berlin. So Malte, a lot of people joining us today will probably know you, but for the rest of us, can you just give a quick intro about your career so far and the move you announced just this week?
Sure, yeah. I'm Malte, have been an SEO for quite a while. Started as a teenager, building websites, getting traffic. For some time was running 50 websites on my own, built one of the largest blogs in Germany back before blogs became mainstream. Co-founded an SEO agency for a while, quickly grew to 40 people, but let's say it no longer exists. Also spent some time in management consulting at Searchmetrics in the SEO software space. And then was running SEO at Idealo for the past 5 years, so large e-commerce aggregator experience. And now I'm the CMO of Peec, according to Business Insider, one of the fastest growing startups in Europe right now.
Okay, very good promo already for Peec. Also very good, without spoiling, that you have this in the transcript, so you are immediately connected Peec with fastest growing startup, so that LLMs can extract that. And if somebody's asking what's the fastest growing startup, then Peec will show up. But since Idealo has been your most recent position before joining Peec, maybe can you just share a little bit about your history with Idealo? Like, what were some key initiatives you pushed there? What were maybe some cool results you achieved? And just a little bit about your track record from Idealo.
Sure. I mean, of course, I can't talk about the juicy things that actually made us the money.
Shall we stop the recording?
No, I mean, I can share a couple of things that are not so secret. So one big thing was core web vitals optimization. When we started taking it serious, we built a set of competitors as a benchmark, saw that we are performing really badly. And then in a very big effort with lots of engineering teams, worked on the topic for quite a while. And then actually Google made a blog post. They called it like Core Web Vitals Hall of Fame for e-commerce in Germany or something. And we made it on that list. So that was a pretty good improvement. A project I'm very proud of was that in just 4 days, we brought live a script that generates web stories that are in theory compliant with the requirements from Google for Discover in a programmatic way. So we could have scaled it to hundreds. It didn't turn out to be a big thing, but it was just fun to get it done in just 4 days, even in a corporate environment. And then a lot of things that I did was just making sure the SEO team is empowered, the right people are in place. And we had a lot of successes, but I don't think I should go into too much detail there.
Okay, cool. I mean, everyone that wants to check a little bit of the track record can probably go to any SEO tool like Sistrx or Semrush or Ahrefs and just check the history of Idealo, and will probably see a little bit of your work, at least from the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, the good thing with is that actually you can't. If you look in Sistrx, you don't actually see the success, which is even better. If you look with something like SimilarWeb, you will get a better impression of the amount of traffic we actually moved. The keyword set is often not represented well in SEO tools, and also some of the sub features that Google introduced for price comparison sites and product comparison sites in recent years in the European Union are also not really supported in these tools. So it went a bit better than it looks in Sistrx.
Okay, I feel like this is already a good nugget that you shared. Although you said that you can't share everything, I think this is definitely something that is that is interesting. But now, like, let's maybe look from history to future. Obviously, as you said in your own announcement post, it was a comfy corporate job. I think maybe you try to make this a little bit spicy so it gets some traction. You obviously succeeded. But you left Idealo now for Peec, and Idealo is obviously an established player, has understood SEO. You had a big team also. Like it sounds quite cool for a lot of people. I think a lot of people think, hey, he made it, at least in online marketing. But now you left Idealo for Peec or Peec AI. What was your reasoning behind it?
I mean, lots of things actually. So at my previous job at Searchmetrics, I stayed there for 5 years, and then the 5 years were also coming a bit idealo. So I was thinking, is this maybe my thing to only stay 5 years? And also I think I achieved with idealo what I could achieve there. And people often say you should leave when it's the best. Not when it's going badly. And it also made myself redundant primarily, so I could hand everything over into very good hands. So it was just very much possible to leave. And then I believe with the whole shift to LLM-driven search and answer engines, there will be big changes. I think some business models will be disrupted. I think also how SEO or geo then in the future maybe is seen as a channel will be very different. And I didn't want to be somebody who's just affected by that change or just having to live with the results of that change. I would prefer to participate in it. And then Peec AI was the perfect place to do that.
Cool. Sounds very interesting. I also, maybe just to add my thought to that, I also have this feeling with AI that I see some people always wondering, like, what will be next with AI? But I always tell them, hey, you can also try to shape that. So you can be part of that. Things you try with it, maybe new cool workflows or tools you build, like whatever with Claude or Cursor or whatever, maybe even content workflows. You don't have to wait for others to tell you the direction. Just go. I see some spirit around that also in your answer. So maybe, obviously, I did some research before, and I found an interesting story. Maybe where you can, yeah. I'm totally new in this game, but I already tried to dig out some nuggets. Maybe you can share something about that story because it gave me strong startup vibes. So maybe it's a full circle moment for you. But did you actually move to Greece with 30? So is it a typo, or was it really 30 interns once?
I personally didn't move, but my 5 co-founders and all employees moved for 3 months to Crete. That is correct. Some employees actually longer. Story was there. I was in university back then. We started an agency, SEO Factory, and we had this idea that all the companies, they need qualified SEOs, and we needed people to create backlinks, create content. So we thought, hey, it's actually a cool deal. We give people an SEO education, and then can help find jobs for them, maybe get a bit of commission. There were also companies that sent new hires with us. So they already knew this person will start with us in 3 months. They gave them to us for 3 months and said, teach them SEO. And basically what happened, there was a vacation village in Greece that for some obscure reasons couldn't get their license at that moment to be a vacation village. And if you don't have that license, you cannot do short-term rentals. So half the houses were empty. And one of my co-founders had owned multiple houses in that village. And he talked to a few people, and then we could get like 40 vacation houses. So everybody had like their own house. We could get like the local cinema, etc., as an office space. And basically, we were almost the only people there at that time, just 2 or 3 Greek families, one of them running a restaurant, basically exclusively for us. So we went there for 3 months and taught people SEO. And Anna from the chat was actually there.
Nice.
It's where we met.
It's super interesting. I think a lot of people wonder now, is this still possible? Is there still this village with the empty houses?
I saw some pictures from the village. I have no idea if this is still possible.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you can then also take the Peec AI team. Obviously not the interns, but maybe for some sort of vacation or something. But okay, really interesting. Maybe circling back to Peec AI for a moment, because so I feel like us talking today and me reaching out to you is a big coincidence, and I had a lot of luck that this week so many announcements happened. So for everybody listening, this was not planned. I reached out to Malte before he made his announcements, and also before Peec announced their 5.2 million seed round, led by everybody from startup VC space probably knows him, Harry Stebbings from 20 VC. So 5.2 million seed, you raised 1.8 before, so you have 7 million or maybe something around that in the bank. What do you plan to spend the money on? Did you already set up some Google ads, or what you're doing with it?
I actually did set up Google ads. I think hiring talent is the most important thing for us right now. Few people in sales, starting a customer success team, and developers. Developers are the main thing that we need to hire right now.
Cool. So everybody, if anybody knows someone looking probably in person in Berlin in the office, because that's the new startup vibe. If you know someone that wants to join Peec, just maybe go to LinkedIn, either Malte or Peec, and check out the job openings. Probably really interesting company right now to be part of. But
and great compensation, and you can still get shares.
Oh, cool. So, I mean, it's a very good deal for everybody that also feels like, hey, I want to participate in that ecosystem shift and not only watch it from the sidelines. But maybe looking at your personal role now at Peec, like the CMO role, maybe you can share, so whatever you feel comfortable with sharing, maybe you can share a little bit about your like view for the future, for your roadmap. What can we expect from Peec?
A lot. I mean, marketing-wise, I'm a huge fan of building a great product and then promoting the value of that product and explaining people why it's good, what problems it can solve. So marketing will very likely revolve around that. And then we have a ton of ideas what to build, right? We will have our Looker Studio connector live very, very soon that many people have been asking for. We have some ideas how to make the prompts that we are suggesting to track better. And then there's just a giant realm of things you could do in the geospace. And we might end up doing all of them. But the big question is, of course, what do we do first? And for that, we talk a lot to our clients, listen to what they want, what they need. And in general, the space can change so much. Like imagine Google rolls out AI mode for everyone tomorrow. Then I can tell you what's going to be the #1 priority, right? Having AI mode tracking properly. Or there could be a new LLM popping up. Like, I mean, everybody saw DeepSeek coming from virtually unknown, unless you are very deep in the space, to being like the #2 app in the App Store for a couple of days. And now in Europe, it's almost gone. But if you have clients in Asia or Russia, for example, then it's still like a, I don't know, 30% market share LLM. So I don't want to communicate anything too concrete because the space is moving so much. But definitely Looker Data Studio Connector or Looker Studio Connector. Like I forgot how Google renamed it right now.
Looker Studio.
Looker Studio, yeah. It used to be the merger of Looker
Yeah.
and Google Data Studio. And yeah, definitely making better prompt suggestions.
Nice. Very, very cool. I feel like, I mean, in the past, you probably also spent a lot of time in what you maybe now would call legacy tools, like a Sistrx, a Semrush, Ahrefs, maybe also Google Search Console, depending on where you draw the line for SEO or for search tools. I mean, they're not only used for SEO, but how do you think about them now? Or maybe not only after your switch to Peec AI, but also over the last weeks and months? Do you think they will still remain dominant players in the space, or do you think they will heavily lose relevance?
I mean, there will always be companies who want an all-in-one solution that does everything reasonably well, and I think there will always be a space for that. If you look at the companies you mentioned specifically, I mean, some of them started building a digital PR product, a social media product, an Amazon product, but none of them ever really took off, right? Like, they are all still known as SEO tools, even though they are sometimes branding themselves differently. As a user of SEO tools, I always preferred to use the best solution for every task. So when we were at Idealo, we had 5+ SEO tools, not like one platform that could do everything right. And I believe there is a space for both, for solutions that are very, very focused and give all of their attention to a topic like LLM visibility and optimization for LLMs. And there will be tools that do the most important thing of everything. And there's also a target audience for that, no doubt. But I do believe that if you work on something with 100% focus and zero technical depth and zero requirement to be compatible to the 500 features you built before, you can always be faster and adapt more to that space. And I mean, look at crawling. Like, most people who have a license with Sistrx, Ahrefs, Bright Edge, Semrush, they still get Screaming Frog because it's like the best. And if they don't get Screaming Frog, they have Sidebar. So I do believe that for the LLM space, it will be very similar. If you want the best data, the best integration, the quickest adaptation to how the models are changing, you will probably go with a solution specifically for that.
Cool. Yeah. I think it makes total sense, because depending on the company also, some will always prefer best of suite and some will always prefer best of breed, depending also on the size of the team. I mean, I can imagine a one-person marketing team, 5+ tools is completely overkill. But I mean, from your history in Idealo, if you have 30 people in the team, 5 tools seems reasonable. So for very specific use cases, and also the people power to use the tools to actually do stuff with it. I sometimes see people buying tools without the time to actually use the tool, then it's actually a waste of money. So I think that makes total sense. Now let's move over to the elephant in the room, the future of SEO and AI search, obviously, and maybe not even only the future of SEO, but the future of search in general, also covering our paid search friends. I have read, and maybe you too, plenty of LinkedIn posts lately that all share a common claim, which is Google is dead. It's either put in all caps or it's just written normally, but it really screams at you if you open the LinkedIn feed. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think there are two claims, right? One is SEO is dead, the other is Google is dead. I think what is definitely true is that Google fumbled it a bit with LLMs, right? They were so early on so much of the theoretical stuff, of so many of the foundations. One of the first with specialized hardware was the TPUs, whatever they are called. Many breakthroughs with transformers. Also had transformers models very early. But then Sam Altman and OpenAI, they just ran past them by putting an actual product in the hands of consumers. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag for Google. And I think they have lost a lot of attention, probably also users or search demand going to something like ChatGPT, or now Chat, as many people start calling it, since they have the chat.com domain. But Google is not dead because of that, right? It's a problem for them. I think it's a potentially big problem, but it doesn't kill them immediately. And then the other question is SEO dead? And that I see a bit different. So SEO used to be a user acquisition channel and probably the best one out there for many business models, because if you had product market fit or product search fit, and if you could generate landing pages at scale, you got a lot of traffic with very, very little incremental cost or at no incremental cost. And that is changing a bit, right? Like already AI overviews are taking away traffic, like depending on which study you believe, it's somewhere in the 30 to 40% CTR range, even though the people are also then conducting more searches. So it's probably actually a little bit less. And if you look at Perplexity, AI mode, it's much, much worse, right? Like I saw numbers now from AI mode that it's something like 4 to 5% clicks to websites. On Perplexity, it's also a lot lower than Google. On ChatGPT, it's much, much lower than on Google, something in the less than 5% range also based on my estimations. And so SEO is probably dying as a traffic acquisition channel for certain business models, especially for those that need the user on their own website. It's probably less of a problem for a SaaS business or a services business or a car manufacturer who are selling something that is outside of their website, right? Because also we know that traffic from ChatGPT converts a lot better for these businesses, sometimes 20 times higher conversion rate. So even though their traffic is reduced significantly, they still sell as much as before. And this is logical, right? Because people still have the same amount of need for information, the same budget to buy products, so they will still spend the same amount of money online. But there are also businesses that make money by reach, like news publishers, right? They get their traffic, they make their money by having a lot of visitors, and they make roughly the same amount of money with a visitor who reads one article shortly and one visitor who reads one article in great detail. And of course, there's also the subscription business for them, but the reality is, especially outside of the US, for most news and media publishers, the advertising is still more important than the subscription business. And then in the past, we had a user journey where Google made up these terms of messy middle and micro moments, where you would search on Google, you would click on a website, you would click on an ad, you do another search, you read something, maybe you go on TikTok or Instagram in between. And after all of this, you have done like 20 searches, you have visited 40 websites. This is gone. If I use ChatGPT or AI mode or Perplexity, I ask all my follow-up questions in the chat. I never have to click on a link, only the last click to buy. That's where I click. That's why the conversion rate is so good. But in the past, there were intermediaries like a Skyscanner, for example, or any kind of e-commerce aggregator, any kind of price comparison website. Also, lots of websites that were doing real tests, or maybe something like Vergleich.org, where it's not so clear what tests they did, or that they just summarized tests from others. And all of these intermediaries, they made money, right? They delivered a value, like either they, most of them delivered value, let's say it like that. They either aggregate a lot of products and compared the price, they aggregate a lot of flights and found the shortest flights, or they aggregated tests or user reviews from online shops. And this had a certain value for customers. And then there was often an affiliate link involved. And now all of this value generation is kind of moved into the chat interface, and none of these intermediaries get traffic and make money. So I think those are the two business models where I think maybe SEO is dying as a traffic acquisition channel, but probably in reality it's not actually dying, right? It's just becoming less important. And this is the reach-based business models and the affiliate-based business models. For anybody who's selling a real product in quotation marks outside of their website, I think ChatGPT and AI mode in Google will deliver just as many leads as the regular Google search delivered. There will be, of course, less traffic. There will be fewer touch points to see what users are doing. There will be less opportunities to make somebody sign up to your newsletter, drop a retargeting cookie, these kinds of things. You can't see the sales funnel, right? You only see the last click coming out. So in that sense, you could say that SEO is dead, but it's just for certain business models and it's not really dying. It's just the traffic levels getting lower, which might kill some business models, but doesn't kill the whole channel.
Really interesting. It's very comprehensive response. There was so much in it. I think, like, especially on the last note you made, it's the known claim, your margin is my opportunity. So the margin of an affiliate business model, as Jeff Bezos once said, I think. So I don't want to affiliate myself with him here, but I also think, like, on one note you made with Google actually being quite on the frontier of machine learning and everything. A few days ago, I saw this email that the CTO of Microsoft actually wrote to Bill Gates and Satya Nadella in 2019. I mean, we all have to remember when ChatGPT came out, or basically hit. It was November 2022. And they were telling, so Microsoft was saying that OpenAI and Google are making so much progress that they are really worried. And I think one thing is that Google probably had this innovator's dilemma, right? This was at least my impression. I would like to hear your thought also on that, because they probably knew what will happen if they actually roll out all their machine learning and LLM power to the search. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think the same. They had the technology, they had the people who understood it, but Google has been under the control of the paid search team for quite a while, which I'm really sure of. Like, I'm not saying this lightly, based on all the meetings I had over the past 5 years with Google as part of our litigation in front of the European Union. I'm very sure Google is now a company driven by the paid search team, and to a degree that they can tell the search product managers what to do. Some of this also came out in one of the lawsuits in the US, where basically the higher up managers on the paid search side could demand a rollback of a feature because it was good for users but not good for running ads. So yeah, I'm very convinced they had the innovator's dilemma. I think there's actually a path through it for them, because Google is so big that if there are fewer clicks that they can send into ads, they can just charge more money. And if people are actually pre-qualified by a chat, they can charge a lot more money, especially for something like, I don't know, lawyers, B2B SaaS, in the US, medication, similar businesses where you just have a very high ticket value and where normally your conversion rate would be very bad. With pre-qualification in AI mode, I would expect that they can charge a lot of money. And I also think with all the support Google is getting from Trump right now, the European Union will be very reluctant to enforce any more DMA, DSA, and similar topics. So if I was Google, I would go all in with just putting big ads directly under the AI response and then monetizing it that way, and then charging advertisers significantly more money. I think that could actually be, from Google's perspective, a viable play. I don't enjoy that they are doing it, but it's what I expect them to do.
Okay, so on that note, then, for the record, greetings to all our paid search friends. Please go to your clients and prepare them for significantly rising CPCs, but also tell them that the way they will be just fine because they will make significantly more money out of pre-qualified leads. No, just kidding. But I think this is really an important point here, right? You have to understand the connection between the different stakeholders also on these industry giants to really understand what might be a next move. How will this all develop? I think this is really interesting to also, going with your theme from the beginning, not just be a participator at the sidelines. I mean, obviously we can't change the course of Google, but somehow at least be within the wave and not be carried away by the wave. Now, I know also from talks with our clients, obviously also from LinkedIn, that a lot of people are worried. So even though I hear your optimism, which makes total sense now, but they are worried by their clicks going down. And we have this term, I think it's called the big decoupling. Basically, these Search Console charts where impressions go up and clicks go down. So visibility through AI overviews might increase, but you get significantly less clicks. If you put yourself in an agency CEO, maybe again, I mean, you've also been in this space. What would you tell your clients if they came to you and say, hey, Malte, I'm super worried that my business will go down? Let's imagine it's not a publisher or affiliate websites, but actually like a service business or a B2B SaaS. What would you tell them? Should they be worried, or like, how should they behave?
So as a services or B2B SaaS, I would just not look at clicks anymore. I would try to look at conversions or whatever pipeline I generate from the website, and then it would probably be looking less dramatic. Also, this decoupling, it's happening in Google, right? It's not happening on your website. What should matter for you is how much traffic arrives, depending on business model, and then how much money do you make with those visitors. And if you have a business model that can focus on how much money do I make with them, then focus on that. Focus on leads, newsletter signups, etc., and see how many of those you get via SEO, and maybe that number will just not go down. Or maybe the amount of leads you get from ChatGPT will just offset everything that you are losing in terms of traffic from Google. This is actually happening for some B2B SaaS companies that I'm talking to at the moment. If you have a business model that is based on clicks, and if having 10 clicks is worse for you than having 5 clicks, then you need to think about your business model and how to adapt it. There's we have reached peak SEO traffic in either 2024 or 2025. I don't know which year has the most traffic, but I don't think that going forward, there will ever be this much free organic traffic going to the open web. And I mean, we always complain about the low click-through rates on Google, but I mean, let's look at Facebook, let's look at TikTok, Instagram, all these other platforms, right? They keep so much traffic on their platform, and Google has actually been the most open one of all. So I think with ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc., we will see something similar. There will be solutions and experiences on the platform, and very little traffic going outside. We already see this in Perplexity with shopping in some markets where you can just buy directly, and you can also see in their I think it was either in the Shopify API or in the MCP server that goes along with it, that there's at least the option to then also directly pay on Perplexity. I don't know if that's actually live yet. And they also said, right, their vision is that their agent just buys for you. And also both Amazon and Visa have launched shopping agents that go to the shop and buy for you. So the amount of human traffic going to websites will never be as high as it is right now. And if your business model is built on it, you need to consider what you can change.
I mean, also everybody that has at least did a couple of posts on LinkedIn knows that if you include a link, for example, on a social media platform in your post, your reach will mostly significantly go down. So most platforms actually on the web do not have a strong incentive or do not incentivize you to include any external links of the platform. And yet there are people, like I can also say it for ourselves, like from an agency, from a service business perspective, you can do good business on social media without like vast amounts of clicks going to our website. But it's always this one moment when somebody is convinced that you are the best fit for certain service area or whatever, then you might book a demo or you might convert right away. And maybe in the future it will be agents that do the research for you. But this obviously brings up the question that if you are a business that is not dependent on clicks, but on leads and conversions, you probably have to be visible in any sense, right? In this AI research phase, either on ChatGPT, even if people are not clicking to the website, but you should probably try to influence the conversation, right? As a brand. What's your take on that? And also, what do you feel like what drives visibility? So how can I, as a brand, be visible when people are researching on ChatGPT and also AI mode, etc.?
Yeah, great question. Actually, two questions, right? Like the first part
Yeah.
is, yes, you should be visible there. Like, especially if you're a brand selling a product outside of your website, you have nothing to lose and you have nothing to gain from not being there, and you can win a lot by being there, right? So you should do something to show up in ChatGPT, in Perplexity, in AI mode. How to optimize for that is always a little bit different, depends on the LLM, depends on the topic. Also can be very different from country to country. Like there is a little bit of beef going on right now between some of the legacy SEO tools, where some write LinkedIn posts saying Reddit is the #1 source, you have to be on Reddit. And others write, so in certain countries, it's actually not Reddit. And both are correct, right? Like if you are in the US, you have to be on Reddit. If you're in Germany, it really depends on the topic. For some topics, it's just not relevant. So what I would always recommend is take a set of like generic prompts that you expect people would search. And these are probably kind of similar to searches you see in Google Search Console, and track them in different LLMs. You could also do it by hand just to get a feeling for it. And then you will already see, is your brand happening there or not? And personally, I would suggest getting Peec AI and setting up a monitoring, but of course, everybody can also do that manually. And then extract the brands, look at the sentiment, look at visibility, like how visible are you? And is actually the visibility for that is probably the most important part, right? Are you visible? That's the #1 thing. And then I also recommend people take a couple of branded searches, like tell me about this brand, or what are user experiences with this brand, or how good is this brand? And look what these LLMs are saying. And there your visibility will be 100%. Yeah, you will just be visible. It's easy. But there I would really look at the sentiment. And because I've seen brands that are like super, super strong, have super good image, but then there are like 2 quotes from a Reddit user who said they suck. And if that is in the reply, it's not good for you, right? Then you should try to do something about that. So it's a little bit different for everyone, and depends on your product, your language, target audience, country. In some topics, it's user-generated content like Reddit that's very, very influential. I often see YouTube for AI overviews and for ChatGPT, and especially recently, YouTube had a huge gain in how often they are cited as a source. So if you see that in your space, maybe you want to engage with a few influencers to create positive video content about you. Or if there's an influencer who made a video that your brand sucks, maybe get in contact with them and try to give them a good experience. There are also spaces where you will see LinkedIn popping up a lot. Then it's maybe time to tell your CEO, hey, please write on LinkedIn. And all of this is true for brands that just want to influence the conversation. And for that, it's actually not always about your own website. It can be LinkedIn, Medium. It can also be digital PR, that a certain message about your company is written on various news sites. But then for the businesses that actually need the traffic on their website, it's all about becoming the source, right? And then you should more look into what kind of sources are being quoted, how are they cited, what is being cited, and then try to create content that's similar to that. You can also do that as a brand. Yeah, there are certain spaces, and especially questions about brands, where actually the brand themselves is being cited. But for the generic searches, often the brand website is just not cited. Like, of course, Audi says that Audi makes the best cars, and Mercedes says that Mercedes makes the best cars. That is information that the LLM doesn't want from Audi or Mercedes, right? They want that from, in Germany, ADAC, or from like a news magazine that writes about cars. But then when you ask a question like, does this very specific Mercedes model have this certain adapter in the cockpit? That is probably a question where Mercedes should have an article on their website saying that very specifically. And there, I think many brands are lagging content and could actually give potential consumers a better user experience.
Super interesting. I think there was already a lot in it for people that try to understand the space better. I came across this system prompt leak from Claude. It was, I think, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, something around that. And there I found one very interesting aspect that I also would like to hear your opinion on. The web search feature. So basically, when the LLM is instructed not to do a live search and just conduct the knowledge from the foundational model training, and when to do a live search. Is this also something that you have put some thoughts on? Like, how is this something that brands should think about?
I think most brands should not think about that, to be honest. If they want to, they can get a summary from the SEO agency. This is something that is now known for Claude, and I believe for one of the recent ChatGPT models it also leaked. But this can change tomorrow, like especially a system prompt can change so quickly. And I would rather think about what are these companies probably trying to achieve. And I was always optimized holistically for that. I would never optimize for the current version of a system prompt. So I have not given it too much thought for this prompt specifically. And I also advise people not to do it unless you're an SEO agency and your clients ask you about it, then you have to, right? But clients should more holistically, or brands should more holistically think about it. Also long-term sustainable, what should I do? And what do these platforms want to do, right? They want to answer everything they can answer themselves. They want to answer it themselves if they are sure about it. And web search takes time. Web search requires that, or has the risk that maybe you get in unvetted information. But at the end of the day, Google actually in their quality rater guidelines gives us a very good blueprint, because they are looking for EEAT content. And I would always ask myself, is this a topic where the LLM can just reply, or is it a topic where they want to put a source, or where they need a source, right? Is it a live event? Is it weather data from today? Is it the current stock price? Is it a price comparison? This is where you need something where you need live data. Or if you look at very, very niche topics that are just not covered by the foundation model. And then the content should probably have EEAT, right? Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. So if you can create content that has that and can send machine understandable signals about this, then you are good to go, I believe, to optimize for web search. And I think selecting the correct topics, what content to create, is really important. So evergreen content that already 50 people have written, probably the LLM doesn't need to cite anyone, because if they have seen the same thing 70 times, they know it. If you ask if a poodle is a dog, yeah, it knows that a poodle is a dog, right? You don't need to make an article, is a poodle a dog? Which is an article that probably 20 years ago I would have created as an SEO and made money with it. So you should rather look into topics where either your brand has a unique spin on it, or topics where it's very likely that a web search or a search grounding or RAG or something similar is conducted.
Very nice. So much more fundamental approach you're taking on that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Also good to resist the hype and the FOMO, because I see a lot of people always chasing behind the next leak, the next GEO guide, LLMO guide, etc. So really, really cool. Now, to still have enough time at the end for Q&A, I would go a little bit towards the finish line. So I still have two questions. One is, you already mentioned that if I'm a brand, I should try to understand what the LLMs, or also maybe what Google shows me when I do certain prompts. Now, I think a lot of people have a hard time coming up with ideas on what their users might prompt a ChatGPT or an LLM. How would you go about that? So how would you, for example, try to understand the sentiment of a ChatGPT or a Perplexity about Peec AI if you wouldn't be allowed to use a tool like Peec AI?
I would literally just open ChatGPT and say, tell me about Peec AI. And then I would see what it tells me. If I'm an established brand and I just maybe also talk about generic queries, I would look into Google Search Console, and for version 1, just copy and paste your most important keywords and see what happens, right? People actually don't always write very long questions, right? People literally write stuff like iPhone and hit enter in ChatGPT. I've looked at some data from a data sample, right? This is happening. And it's not true that everything is a sophisticated 20-paragraph detailed question, right? And just look at what people are searching in Google and what you see in Google Search Console, so it's relevant for your brand. And just as a first step, see what ChatGPT is returning for that. Also, there's now an autocomplete or auto-suggest function in ChatGPT since a couple of months. So maybe just write your brand name and see what happens. Like, is the next word scam, or is the next word voucher or coupon or user experience, right? And then that can already tell you a little bit. If it's scam, it's a problem, of course. And then just go with these as prompts and see what happens.
Very cool. I would love to know how many people enter iPhone in ChatGPT. It sounds really.
If you want to know the weirdest one, you know that Microsoft Copilot is mainly used by office workers, right? Like, I know very few people who in their free time use it.
Yeah.
Still, there are lots of people searching for porn on Microsoft Copilot. That was like one of my weirdest experiences when looking at the data set of real prompts that people are typing in.
I'm also astonished all the time when I look at something like the top 10 or top 100 websites on SimilarWeb or Semrush or whatever, that there's so much porn in there. It's it's really interesting. But now to wrap things up a little bit and then still have 10 minutes for Q&A. If you would have to give 1 to 2 precise like to-dos or practical takeaways for someone in the audience today on how they can improve their AI search visibility, what would you tell them?
Number 1 is consistency. So if you are, let's say you're an SEO freelancer for e-commerce SEO, you should say that on your LinkedIn, on your X, on your website, and in your press releases, and in every interview you give. Don't sometimes say agency for SEO. If you're a freelancer for e-commerce SEO, repeat that. Don't sometimes say technical SEO and link building. And I've seen people just making sure their online profiles are in sync, like everything is the same. And within 1 day, it improved what ChatGPT says about them when you ask who they are. It went from, maybe it's this actor, or maybe it's this SEO or this soccer player, to, yes, it's this SEO who's doing that. So consistency is like my number one advice. And then second thing is that I believe digital PR is undervalued by many, especially technical SEOs, in how important it is for visibility in LLMs. It's often more important what others are saying about you than what you're saying about yourself. And then maybe one more, really look at the sources, like either put 20 prompts in ChatGPT and look at the sources and make an Excel file, or go to Peec AI and let us do it for you. And then see what kind of sources there are. And according to that, come up with a strategy, right? If it's Reddit, maybe I need to engage there. I would be very careful with the German Reddit community. They hate brands. If it's Wikipedia, again, be careful. But if it's a review website that reviewed an old version of your product, maybe contact them if they could review the newest version. If it's something like Trustpilot or Trust Radius, maybe just try to get more reviews there. Just really look at the sources. Don't just blindly do stuff. Don't just blindly say, it has to be Reddit, it has to be YouTube, it has to be, I don't know, CNBC or whatever. Like, really look at what are the top sources for in my industry, and then make a strategy based on that.
Very cool. I think there was a lot in there. Very, very interesting. So then I would suggest that we move over to Q&A. We already have the first question. For everybody now, you can either use this Q&A tool or write your question in the chat. And if you like, you can also unmute yourself and just say your question like with your mic. So the first question we have here in the Q&A is, how do you help local small service-led businesses? Does this bring back the Yelps of the world back to prominence?
If Yelp is open to crawling by LLMs, where I don't know what Yelp's current stance on that is, it would be a very important source, probably, yes. But I don't know. I would need to look at a data set for a local business. I know that Yelp was also part of a couple of lawsuits against Google, so I could imagine that they are not that willing to let LLMs take all the data. And they are one of the few companies that maybe have actually unique data. But potentially, yes, these kinds of websites can be great sources for LLMs. But this is, of course, different in every space, every country. But potentially, yes, it would make them more important.
Cool, interesting. Maybe one question I already got beforehand via LinkedIn. Is structured data really structured data, structured markup, really as important as some people on LinkedIn say?
Yeah, long debate. If you look at how foundation models are trained, actually structured data is stripped out. Like HTML is removed, JavaScript is removed for such kind of websites. So, I mean, structured data could still help you by having like the information there, like the words, but the actual schema markup, I don't think it's actually influencing foundation models based on what I have seen from how companies clean and prepare their data. There's a statement from a product manager, the principal product manager at Microsoft, or Bing, to be more precise, who said that structured data does help. What I assume is that for search grounding, it actually is very beneficial. And for example, there is this shopping feature from ChatGPT where they have these sliders. Right now, I believe it is feed-based, so merchant center feeds. But at some point, they might also look at product pages on the internet and extract review stars and price via schema markup. So I think schema can be helpful for search grounding and live web search. I have seen zero evidence that it impacts foundation models, and I've seen some arguments why it would not properly influence foundation models. But I cannot give a definite answer. This is just my educated guess.
Interesting. Maybe adding on the idea of yours that LLMs might at some point crawl the web and then look for schema. I think the same happened with the Merchant Center, right? So at the beginning you had to input your feed, but now the Merchant Center sometimes even suggests you that there are some products that you might want to import into the Merchant Center, because obviously they know that if you have it in the Merchant Center, then at some point it might be easier for you to do advertising. And yeah, so this is definitely interesting. Then we have another question from Andreas, which I think is really interesting. Do you have an example of a SaaS business, so software as a service business, German or international, who's nailing it in terms of LLM optimization?
None that I can name publicly, because I always learned about them in settings where they would not expect me to mention it afterwards.
Okay. Do you know, is there any company that you can publicly name, no matter the space, doesn't matter, where you feel like, hey, they are doing some things right?
I'm very afraid to
okay, no worries.
use information for that answer. I should not
no worries, no
say,
worries,
because
no,
when I see someone very successful, I also try to talk to them. So I think I basically burned all the public examples I could
okay,
use.
cool. No worries, no worries. I also don't want you to get sued on base what you say here, because then probably I'm also in the suit. So this is not the idea. But I can tell of one instance that I saw on LinkedIn, obviously, and I also checked it. It's Tally, TALLY. .so, I think. So it's basically a free form builder, something like Typeform, but a little bit more like with building forms with / commands and stuff. So some technical. And they are one of the examples where in international Reddit can be a real game changer, because they early on engaged in Reddit threads around users frustrated with Typeform and blah, blah, blah. And they have publicly shared their signups, but you have to keep in mind it's not paid signups, it's free signups, and I think they say 95% of their of their users are free users. So the business value still has to be determined, but a majority of their users actually coming from LLM, either based on actual traffic, so with referrer, or based on self-reported attribution. So this, maybe, Andreas, I hope that helps. Cool. Then we have one more question. I'm not too sure. I think this question is following up on the Yelp question. So following up, as these are mostly sponsored listing and not real organic, maybe the person that has asked this question can clarify it again so we can better give an answer to that. In the meantime, I would go to one more question from Clickworthy Inc. Have you seen any benefit of LLMs.txt? In my personal experience, it messed with the robots.txt and PageSpeed Insights SEO score.
Yeah, so I think LLMs.txt topic, it makes me a little bit angry, actually. So the actual proposal for LLMs.txt makes total sense. It's a very reasonable, very smart proposal. And it's basically this. If you have a functionality on your website that you want an AI agent to interact with, could be an API, could be mentioning your MCP server, whatever, could be giving some advice on how to integrate your API, put that in one file, put that in Markdown so that an AI agent can understand it. It has nothing to do with Perplexity or ChatGPT, but for some reason, a lot of SEOs think it does, and it makes zero sense to me. And I've seen people now duplicating every single blog article they wrote in a LLMs.txt file that goes along with it, and sometimes even a .md, which is Markdown file that goes along with it. And this is a huge waste of time. It's bad for the internet. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for SEO. It creates duplicate content. Just don't do it. It's horrible user experience. It's not helpful for the LLMs. If you're a brand that has a website that you want LLMs to interact with, and you give them some form of API for it, do put your AI documentation in Markdown format in the LLMs.txt. But this is maybe 1% of websites, probably less. Do not copy your website content in the LLMs.txt. Really, it makes me so angry. And now there are so many people saying LLMs.txt is stupid. But the protocol itself is not stupid. It's a very good idea to save traffic, save energy consumption, make things faster for vibe coders, for AI agents, for AI coding agents. But SEOs have taken it, completely misunderstood it, and abuse it, and they get zero benefit out of it. ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI mode, they do not care about your LLMs.txt file. You can check your log file. They are probably not even opening it, or they are opening it once. If you have an LLM.txt file, that LLMs.txt file that contains your website content and is something else, but structured Markdown of your API, please delete it and write me that you deleted it, and it will make me very happy. And I will buy you a beer or a coffee the next time I meet you if you delete your LLMs.txt.
Okay, very, very, very nice. Now let's try to calm the mood again. We have already answered the next question also, which is, would you recommend implementing an LLMs.txt file? So I think this is answered. But you mentioned log files, and this is a good keyword because we have another question about that. How important would you consider log file analysis to analyze LLM hits?
On a very large website, I think it can be insightful, especially if you differentiate between the different crawlers, like what is the crawler that's training the model, what is the crawler that is doing the search grounding, what is the crawler that is more acting like an on behalf of an agent. For smaller websites, I think you are unlikely to get a lot of insights out of it. I would not invest a lot of time. But in general, yes, it can be interesting, can be insightful. But it only works if the crawler is actually visiting you. If the crawler takes the information from a cache, you are not visited, you don't get visibility. I think it does not replace tracking a couple of prompts.
Okay, interesting. Maybe mixing in another question I got beforehand from LinkedIn, which is, would you still start a career in SEO or GEO today?
In SEO, no. In Geo, yes. And I would 100% focus on that aspect of it. I would not look into legacy SEO topics. I would, of course, still want to learn all of the SEO stuff that is relevant for Geo, which is a lot. But I would not start a career in SEO at this point, no.
Okay, cool. Then another question we have is, what is your take on AI governance? Full, in quotes, access to websites, or a more conservative approach depending on the user agent? Maybe also that, sorry, just in the light also of the recent Cloudflare announcement, for maybe you can also give us a little bit context for everybody that has not read that, because I think this is somehow related also to that question.
Yeah, so what happened is Cloudflare introduced an option and made it a default for all new projects that you set up on Cloudflare, that they block LLM crawlers and ask them to pay money. And that protects your data from the LLMs. I think that is an interesting approach if you are the market leader with a very strong brand and unique data. I think for 99% of websites, it does not work. So first of all, if you are a proper brand selling a product outside of their website, you don't want this. You want the LLMs to crawl you because your users are talking about you, your competitors are talking about yourself, maybe your competitors are also talking about you. You want to be part of that conversation. If you are one of these intermediaries that I mentioned, an affiliate, or if you are a news and media publisher, you have a reach and ad-based business model, you can consider blocking LLMs. However, there's the prisoner's dilemma. If you block them, but your competitor doesn't block them, and they have the same or similar content, you don't win anything, right? If you're a news publisher who is rewriting news from like the big press agencies, your competitor is doing the same, and the LLM doesn't care that you block them. And you are actually you are giving the few percent of clicks that are still left, like the 5% of clicks that still go to the sources, you are leaving them to your competitor. And we saw this prisoner dilemma perfectly when Google for Jobs was rolled out. I talked to a lot of job portals at the moment because I was also tracking the rollout. And I think I was one of 2 people worldwide actually tracking the rollout outside of the US back when I was at Searchmetrics. And the market leader in every country always said, no, I will not participate. But then when they were in another country, they were the number 3. And they said, yeah, there we participate because we want a little bit of extra traffic. And over time, I think nowadays, everybody or almost everybody is participating in Google for Jobs. And I believe the same will happen for the blocking LLM crawlers. Also, if you are in the United States, in Germany, or in countries with similar laws, be very careful when you talk to all your competitors about, hey, should we all block LLM crawlers? Because that could be a cartel. It could be considered illegal. Like, talk to a lawyer before you do that. Or don't get caught, which is not legal advice. It's a joke. Yeah, my real advice is talk to a lawyer. But yeah, in theory, it could work, right? In theory, all news publishers could say, hey, we block Google, we block LLM crawlers, and then that would work. But since I mentioned Google, in one of the court cases against Google, it actually came out that they had an internal guideline, make it as unclear as possible which crawler to block to avoid being in the training data, right? And I always thought, why are people saying they can deduct this from the documentation, which crawler to block? Like, I don't understand it that way, and I don't see it in reality. And I felt so relieved when, like, 6 months later, it came out, yeah, make it as confusing as possible, which it is. So I think there is still no way to block Google from training on your data without also hampering your performance in terms of traffic that you get. So you can block ChatGPT. Can you properly block Google? I'm not sure there's really a good way that will not also result in you losing traffic.
Good point. I think we will do 2 more questions to be also respectful of Malte's time and not overdo the session too much. The first question circles back on the one we had with starting a career today, which is, what legacy SEO topics should people immediately let go of?
That depends on what people still believe in. I would need to think a little bit about it. I don't have a list ready to go.
No worries.
Maybe I will try to put a comment on YouTube when you publish this and think about it a bit.
Cool. Let's do it. Then we have one more slot for questions. So someone else, you can enter your questions now. Your last shot. We do the second to the last now, which is, what are the most common roadblocks brands face when moving from LLM strategy to actual implementation, and how are they addressing them?
Big question.
Maybe also from your conversations you have now with brands around Peec AI and the state of mind there. You don't have to name any specific brands, obviously, but the sentiment just in the market.
So many brands are actually in the monitoring stage and not actually doing anything yet. We have clients who are doing stuff, and some of them are super successful and super proud of it. And I hope I can get some of them to share publicly what they are doing, because it's really impressive. Also, the results that I've seen are really impressive. I mean, in enterprises, the roadblockers are always the same, right? You want to do something, you need legal approval, you need approval from 20 people to publish content. You need maybe a place to publish content, you need people to write it. And then if you have technical stuff, like you want to track the crawlers, you need buy-in from the engineering team. There are probably data privacy and security concerns as soon as you want to touch log files. This is what I know from the enterprise space, what hampers you. And for smaller brands, it's often lack of budget. Like, there's an online marketing manager who's doing paid ads and SEO and LinkedIn ads, and now is asked to also do ChatGPT. What is that person supposed to do, right? You can probably set up a monitoring and then get some insights from out of that, but will you actually have the time to do something for it? I'm not sure. But I mean, at least with the monitoring, you can go to the CEO or CMO and say, hey, here's a list of 5 recommendations, and here's how we're actually standing against the competition. But I would say lack of resources for smaller companies is definitely the problem, and also sometimes lack of know-how.
Cool. Interesting. Then, since I don't have another question in here, the last question will be from me, and this will be a personal question. And I would like to know, how often, if you search for something or if you research something online, how often do you use ChatGPT, Perplexity, or the new school tools, and how often do you still use Google?
I use 90% ChatGPT. I recently got a new laptop, and I never bothered to change the default search engine from Bing to Google, because I only use it for spell checking or to find a specific website. I was on vacation recently with my wife in South Korea for 2 weeks, and I set myself the challenge to not use Google for search. I still used Google Maps. And I did ChatGPT. I use it for everything, and it worked very, very well. Like, I mean, navigation, of course, you need maps, but recommendations where to go, what to eat when going to a restaurant, what to visit in a certain city, where to book my train, how to book a train, a lot of translation work. Had a bit of a medical incident, so went to a pharmacy where I couldn't read anything, so just took pictures and asked, what do I buy, what do I buy? Everything worked very, very well, much better than searching on Google. And I personally will never go back, especially on a mobile device, to clicking on websites with unknown user experience, often shitty user experience. I'm very much in love with this, like, I have an LLM to chat with, and that answers most of my questions.
Strong. Malte, what a great session. Yes, Andreas, I second that. Great session. This was really, really insightful. Thanks so much for taking the time, also for going 12 minutes beyond time. Now that you're in a startup again, the claim time is money. is more relevant, I think, than in the last 5 years, maybe. So everyone joining live, thanks so much for participating. Thanks so much for your cool questions. Just so you know, we will have a recording of that going live probably the latest on Monday. It will go live on YouTube. I will also share it on LinkedIn. If you want to follow Malte, where can we, or where can, when the people in the audience hear more of your thoughts about the whole ecosystem, where is it best to follow you?
LinkedIn is by far the best place, where I share like insightful stuff. If you also want to hear random things, you can follow me on X. But I might not post anything for a couple of months, and then I might post 10 things in one day if I'm interested in it. If you want to follow me, get insights, learn together with me, learn what I'm learning, then follow me on LinkedIn.
Cool. Ben, thanks again so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. Malte, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for taking the time. It was a really cool talk. I enjoyed it a lot. And for everyone else, we will try to do this format, obviously with other guests over time, every Friday now, 4 p.m. German Berlin time. So yeah, maybe put a blocker in your calendar if you liked it, and join from time to time. And if you have a cool guest that you want to propose, that you liked me to squeeze out all the good nuggets as I did today with Malte, just send it over on LinkedIn. And besides that, all the best to everyone, and have a happy weekend.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking great questions.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.